Good morning, all my kings, queens, peasants, friends, and enemies alike. This is the Week 11 Fantasy Football Recap, where we go game by game by game by game by game, everything that happened yesterday in Sunday's slates as it relates to fantasy football, the good, the bad, the fugly, everything in between. All right, we do this every single Monday, recapping it. So if you are new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications on for the channel, because it lets you know when I do go live. Sometimes 11 a.m. Eastern time, sometimes 2 p.m. Eastern time. Just depends when I wake up in the morning, to be honest with you. And I didn't really sleep that well last night, so I woke up very early, got prepared for the video early. You know why I woke up early this morning? Because I was fucking pissed. I was pissed at T. Higgins. What else is fucking new? We're here to be pissed at T. Higgins because that is what we do on a daily basis. You know what else happens on a daily basis? Underdog gives you a fucking free square. All they want to do is give you money, all right? If you're not on Underdog Fantasy at this point, I'm not sure literally where you live or what you do, or if your brain has been turned on in the last 3 years, because if you get on there, CJ Stroud quite literally has to get one single yard in tonight's game and you win your bet on Underdog Fantasy, all right? When you go download Underdog Fantasy, deposit $10 with code BDGE, they're going to give you this free square. And if you end up watching this video or any video that you end up watching after the game already started, they will have another one. They have one for Thursday Night Football. They have one for the Sunday slates. They have one for Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football. All they do is give you free money all the time, all right? We're here to give you free money, which is why you download it, use code BDGE. They're going to give you a deposit bonus, more money for you, and a free bet, all right? While we're on the notion of T. Higgins, we're actually going to, well, let's just start backwards there. Let's just start on the Sunday Night Football game, okay? Because this was an incredible game, first of all. 34-27. I'm not going to lie. This is how this game played out. I went into Sunday Night Football. I was down like 31 points, I believe. And all I had was T. Higgins. My opponent didn't have anybody. Casey, if you guys know Casey from Snapback, real piece of shit. Wanted to beat him bad. First place, his team's like 9-1 right now. I went in down 31 points, just T. Higgins, full PPR. So I'm like, there's no fucking chance I get this anyways. I end up going to bed at like halftime, which at that point, T. Higgins, I think, has like 5 or 6 points. So I would need like 25 in the second half. No chance it happens. I wake up for whatever reason with 3 minutes left in the game, and the game is tied 27-27. I woke up like quite literally 3 seconds after T. Higgins had his last catch. And I'm not like here checking the scores of my fantasy game because I'm like, there's no chance that I win this game. There's not a chance. But I look at my phone because I look at the group chat and it's like kind of blowing up, and Sexy texts and says, it's sad that Nick isn't awake to see how close he is to winning this game. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I open up the fantasy app, I look at it, and I see I'm down 151.3 to 152.7. I'm like, what the fuck happened? I look, T. Higgins has like 29.5 points. Motherfucker's 9 for 148 and a touchdown. I'm like, holy shit. So now my heart's racing. I go from dead sleep, like REM sleep, to whoosh, like a spike. Like, it couldn't be healthy, the emotions that I went through in like a 30-second period, to opening my eyes to my heart goddamn nearly exploding. Y'all know the rest of the story, though. They somehow have 3 drives in the final 2 minutes. Can't get one single catch within that. Joe Burrow has the one rollout where he gets tackled mid-throw, but T. Higgins is wide. Case in point, didn't fucking happen to lose a game by a point. Ruin my day, ruin my morning. That's why I didn't sleep, because all that shit happened within a 5-second period. Otherwise, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert playing some good fucking ball. Biggest takeaways here, like obviously T. Higgins back, which makes every other pass catcher, droppable pretty much. I'd probably hold on to like Mike Gesicki, I guess, but it's T. Higgins, it's Jamar Chase, it is Chase Brown who continues to have the workhorse duty here. Herbert on the other side, balls out. Ladd McConkey looking better and better and better and better by the day. Will Disley continues to be a real playmaker for them and operate as a tight end 1 in fantasy right now. 4 for 80 and a touchdown. Quentin Johnson gets home again. The guy just keeps getting it done one way or another. Like, it doesn't always look good and he doesn't always play well, but he gets a touchdown or he has a big play pretty much every single week. And I think Johnson, especially in these types of matchups, against teams that are going to throw the ball a lot, against teams where Chargers are going to have to pass the ball a lot, Johnson is like for sure a wide receiver 3 going forward. In the backfield, Gus Edwards, after getting a lot of hype last week, ended up doing his best Gus Edwards impression. 6 for 27 on the ground, doesn't catch a ball. J.K. Dobbins does get home for fantasy players. Like, realistically, probably should have had a really shitty day. Ends up getting a random goal line carry after Hassan gets stuffed twice. It was like fourth down. They gave him the ball on the 1 yard line. Finally, he gets in, and then, the last drive of the game where he ran for that 29-yard touchdown. This could have easily been, a 10 for 30, 0 touchdown game for J.K. Dobbins. Ends up getting home. But it is a little shaky in that backfield, I will say, because those 2 carries for Hassan Haskins were on the goal line. Harbaugh loves giving his former Michigan Wolverine goal line carries, so I'm not saying I'm like shading away from J.K. Dobbins, but I do think if you could sell him high, I do think if you can get good value for him, like if you could package Dobbins and a receiver for like a T. Higgins, obviously it's a very hard buy after a game like this, but you guys get the point. I think it might make sense. The Chargers do have a pretty tough schedule going forward for run defenses. They play Pittsburgh next week, I believe, unless I'm making that up, actually. Regardless, though, the backfield situation is a little bit murky between carries going elsewhere and goal line carries going elsewhere, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let's actually go back to Thursday Night Football, though. I'm not even sure why we started there. The most frustrating part, like you guys know, T. Higgins has been the bane of my fucking existence this year. It's only because he's so good when he's on the field, right? It's love and hate. It's two sides of the same coin. Like, I'm so mad. You don't see me sitting here getting fucking furious with Josh Palmer because he was never good. This is kind of the story of this fantasy football season. It's a lot of teams that probably drafted really, 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 really well, but just got fucked. And those are the teams typically at the bottom of the standings in what I've seen the fantasy landscape kind of play out this year. It's the teams that drafted, the Nikos, the Rashi Rices, the Cooper Kupps, the T. Higginses, the, those types of players where you drafted really well, got fucked with injuries, and that kind of cost you the year. T. Higgins, one of those dudes. He has been, after this game, in terms of points per game, he's got to be a top 8 or 6 fantasy wide receiver because he's only played about 6 games, and 2 of them were 30-point games. So kind of just sucks some ass there. Washington, Philly, everyone knows the narrative now at this point that Philly's defense, kind of willed them to a victory. 26-18 on Thursday Night Football. Their defense is becoming one of the best, if not just a complete shutdown defense right now. We had Brian Robinson make his return, so that was good. He's a high-end RB2 week in and week out because in better matchups, they just move the ball really well and he gets a lot of goal line scores. Eckler was able to get home via the air, 8 for 89, but he's a little bit risky still. I think he's definitely like a flex play still, even with Brian Robinson back because they split the backfield and he gets a lot of the pass catching work. Zach Ertz is just continuing his season that Zach Ertz does, where it's a great game, a terrible game, a great game, a terrible game. Good luck trying to figure out when the good game is coming, so do whatever you want there. Terry finally had a down game, but he's been, obviously amazing, so we're not taking anything away from there. On the Philly side of things, man, I'm going to be honest, man, like as an A.J. Brown owner, I hate how this offense runs for fantasy. Like Hurts is playing a relatively efficient ball. He's getting it done via fantasy, via the ground, but their offense just, it feels like they pass the ball only when they absolutely need to, and all they're doing is just relying on big Saquon runs. They just want to give Saquon as many carries as possible to bust a big run. And I don't really blame them, to be honest with you. It's just with their defense getting really good and them not needing to take shots downfield and them relying so heavily on Saquon, it is killing the wide receiver production here because they get so few targets. Like A.J. Brown's a dude who should be getting 13 targets a game. He should be getting fed like CeeDee Lamb, but like a good game is him getting 8 targets. So if he doesn't capitalize on a touchdown pass, which in the red zone, it's all Jalen Hurts, it's all Saquon Barkley. If he doesn't capitalize on one of those, or if, he ends up getting, if a deep shot, right? Like his 50-yard catch is overthrown by a foot or there's PI or something happens, whatever, it's broken up. Like that's the one shot that he gets a game to really make his fantasy day boom like that. So AJ Brown's a dude where I'm going to be honest, man, because of the way this offense is set up and the way this defense is set up, if you're still able to sell AJ Brown as like a top 5 name for like one of the Rams receivers, I think I might pull the trigger because it's all this like hypothetical upside versus dudes that are actually fucking producing in offenses that throw the ball a lot and run through those receivers. AJ Brown's, probably a top 3 wide receiver in real life, but this offense is not one that gives itself to like seeing that production or that stuff kind of come to. It's almost like AJ Brown is back in Tennessee where they had a good offense because they ran it through Derrick Henry. They took shots when they absolutely needed to, and it's led to just like low volume, no real ceiling type of games. So that's my fucking spiel here. Packers Bears. Packers take it home 2019. They had a blocked field goal to end the game, similar to the Chiefs last week. Jordan Love plays on and off. Obviously, a super tough pass defense in Chicago. This is a very good pass defense. Josh Jacobs gets home. He has about 140 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown. Christian Watson has a big day, 4 for 150, thanks to a 60-yard catch, fall down, run. Better days ahead for the passing offense here in Green Bay when they're not playing in Chicago. First game without Shane Fraudrin as the offensive coordinator. Now, this is a game here where they just let Caleb Williams kind of run wild. 9 for 70 on the ground, 31 attempts for Chicago, and 34 rushing attempts. 31 passing attempts, 34 rushing attempts. They had a pretty clear direction of how the offense was to go. It was a lot more efficient overall. It's not anything that makes me overly excited about the offense going forward. I will say one of the big changes that I noticed, and this was something I tweeted out earlier this morning. If you're not following me on Twitter, go do so at Nick Ercolano. This is the first game under the new OC, obviously. Roschon Johnson, first of all, first 10-carry game since week 5. He saw 88% of the short down and distance snaps, 82% of the long down and distance snaps, 67% of the goal line carries, the inside the 5-yard line carries, and 100% of the 2-minute drill snaps. All of that data is thanks to Fantasy Life. They have all this data here for you. So DeAndre Swift played 54% of the snaps, which is his lowest snap percentage since week 3. Roschon up to 44%, which was a season high. I don't know that that's a huge coincidence here with the new OC. But you could see he got a season high in rushing attempts. He ran 31% of the routes, which is his highest number since week 3. Short down and distance, 88%. Inside the 5 attempts, 67%. Long down and distance, 82%. And if I move my stupid fucking face, you have the 2-minute drill snaps here, 100%. Is that just a one-game off thing? Maybe a little scrappy weather. They wanted the bruiser to wear down the Green Bay offense, etc. DeAndre Swift wasn't really getting anything going until the end when he had that big run. Maybe that plays into it, but I think it's something to keep an eye on. And I think Roschon, who, similar to the Blake Corums or the Trey Bensons or whatever, they're just high-end handcuffs right now to the starter. Roschon, maybe we see a trend kind of uptick where he gets this kind of work going down the stretch. And if you're going to mix in goal line carries and you're going to mix in long down and distance and 2-minute drills, maybe he can have a floor of, 8 to 10 PPR points and have games where if he scores, he's up to, 14 or whatever. So Chicago's got a very tough schedule going down the stretch. So I'm not going crazy here. It's just something that I did notice. And again, you guys can have access to the utilization chart here on Fantasy Life. It is one of the best fucking useful tools in the entire industry right now. If you go to fantasylife.com and sign up for a membership, it's $100 for an entire calendar year. And you get 20% off if you use code BDGE when you check out. So if you want to look at this stuff during your summer research and you sign up now, you will get it all the way through week 11 next year. If you want to use it for the remainder of the season, for the playoffs, for DFS if you play in the NFL playoffs or whatever, this is the best package to fucking have for that kind of stuff. FantasyLife.com. Use code BDGE when you check out for 20% off. That knocks it down to $80 for the entire year. One of the best investments you can make as a serious fantasy player. What else here? Rome had a good game, 10 targets. DJ Moore, 7 for 62. It was fine for the receivers. I still have very little confidence in any of them really going forward, especially given the matchups they have down the stretch. Lions and the Jags, there's nothing really to take away from here. The Lions just beat the fuck out of the Jaguars. This was, heard on a podcast this morning, the third largest yardage discrepancy, I believe, since 1960 in a game. Since 1960. The Detroit Lions threw for 449 yards, ran for nearly 200 yards. The Jacksonville Jaguars threw for 129, ran for 41. Travis Etienne got nothing going despite Tank Bigsby not being in the lineup. Detroit's obviously a ferocious run defense. BTJ, this was kind of exactly what I was saying in the sit-start Q&A on Saturday that I do every week. BTJ, he's like an okay play because the game script is going to be so bad for Jacksonville that they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. And you're not going to want to watch the game for BTJ, but at the end of the game, he will end up having, I think I said, like somewhere between 10 and 14 PPR points for you, and that's exactly where he ended up, 5 for 82. But overall, they have their bye next week. There is some optimism that Trevor Lawrence can return, so that's kind of big. I believe Gabe Davis just did something. I saw an injury that kind of came out on Twitter this morning, so it does seem like I can't remember exactly what it was, maybe a torn meniscus or something. It feels like, based on what I can remember, Gabe Davis might be out for maybe the remainder of the season, but a few weeks probably. So I would imagine an uptick in targets for Brian Thomas and Evan Ingram going forward. So hopefully T-Law can come back and those guys can kind of get right. On the flip side, yeah, everybody got shit done. So Vikings and Titans, an ugly game here. Darnold has a bit of a bounce back, basically 250 and 2 touchdowns through the air. We did see like a clear split between Aaron Jones and Cam Akers. The Tennessee Titans have an overall good defense. Aaron Jones carried the ball 15 times for 39 yards. Cam Akers 10 for 25. So we saw Cam Akers get really involved. He did catch a touchdown pass. I kind of just imagine it was like, Aaron Jones has been banged up for the last month or so. He is a veteran, and they're probably trying to save him down the stretch a little bit. They trusted their defense not to allow, the Titans to really score. Obviously, Will Levis kind of had that one lucky, 95-yard touchdown pass. Other than that, they weren't getting anything going on offense. Jefferson, 6 for 81, so kind of a down game. Jordan Addison finally does get home, but only catches 3 balls, 61 yards, and a tug. Hockenson had a pretty down game relative to what we kind of came to expect, but this was just like a sloppy, grind it out, get the win, get the fuck out of Tennessee type game. So I expect better days ahead for Minnesota and their star players. On the flip side, Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, probably the only real takeaways here. Tajay Spears, I believe, suffered another concussion, so expect him to be out. So let me pull up the NFL schedule grid just to see when all these bye weeks are coming up, because we have a relatively big bye week next week in week 12. Atlanta, I hate how they don't have byes in week 7, week 8, barely in week 9, and then they're all padded at the end of the season. So week 12, we have Atlanta on a bye, Buffalo on a bye, Cincinnati on a bye, Indy on a bye, New England on a bye, the Jets on a bye. That is a lot of fucking fantasy firepower. So if you weren't thinking ahead, now is the time to do so. Minnesota has already had their bye, as has Tennessee. So all these players will be playing next. But again, with Tajay Spears on the concussion protocol again, Tony Pollard might be back in line for another really big workload against Houston. They're at Houston. I think Houston's defense for the most part has been overrated this year. It's one of those teams that everyone's just says oh, they're a really good defense, but they really actually haven't been that good of a defense, so they're not really a stay away matchup. Raiders, Miami. I mean, I don't know what you want to say here. Nothing really happened on the Raiders side of the ball except for Brock Bowers going absolutely fucking nutty here. Madison and Zamir White both got banged up in this game and left, and I don't know if they returned, so that's an injury report to keep an eye on. Amir Abdullah got a little bit more work. He got into the end zone. I don't know what they do in that backfield. If both of those guys miss time, they would probably sign a veteran off the street or something. You're not giving Amir Abdullah 20 touches in a game if these guys are both banged up. So I feel like if one of them misses time, then the other one could be a usable flex play-ish. If the other misses time, then vice versa. So it's kind of ugly all around. Bad game for Jacoby Myers, but, I expect him to continue seeing a pretty decent amount of targets going forward. On Miami's side of things, 288 and 3 touchdowns for Tua. So big game for him. Finally kind of had an upside game here. De'Lon Achane continues to get it done. Another 100 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown. The rest of the backfield is just shit here. Jalen Wright, Raheem Mostert are not even close to playable. They're both just, it's even if Achane goes down, it's cool. I feel okay about Jalen Wright. Mostert's unusable at this point, but there'll be a committee if Achane goes down. But right now, Achane is absolutely monopolizing targets, touchdowns, every bit of production in that backfield. Johnny Smith continues to fucking ball out. 6 for 101, 2 more touchdowns in this one on a team high tie with Tyreek Hill, 8 targets. He is making plays after the catch. This is what they brought him in for because he's a really good athlete that fits really well in this type of scheme. Now, he did have a wide open catch. It was pretty much a busted coverage where he ran for 60 yards and a touchdown. But even if he didn't have that, still, 5 for 50 and a touchdown, which is great fantasy type of numbers and usage for tight ends. He's getting better as the season is progressing. And I think you can argue Johnny Smith is kind of an every week tight end one at this point. Tyreek Hill gets into the end zone, so he has a pretty good fantasy day. Jalen Waddle continues to be like the fourth, fifth option in this offense, and he is for sure someone that you can continue to bench if you need to. Rams, Patriots, man. Holy shit. Stafford, 4 touchdowns, 300 yards through the air. Kyron, 15 for 86 on the ground. Didn't catch a single pass. Puka and Cooper Kupp, 19 targets on 27 pass attempts. They had 70% of the targets in this one. This is like what the Rams want to be when they are clicking on all cylinders, when they are at full strength. I had a trade 3 weeks ago. So after week 7, going into week 8, where I traded, there was a couple other pieces involved, but the majority of the trade was I was trading away Cooper Kupp, who looked a little bit banged up after, in that first game back in week 7, for Kyron Williams, who had scored a touchdown in like 9 straight games. And since I got him, Cooper Kupp has scored like 7 touchdowns, goes over 100 yards every single week. And Kyron Williams scored a touchdown in that first game and then has missed scoring a touchdown in like 3 straight weeks. So anybody that has Kyron Williams, I apologize for trading from him. This is 100% and completely, utterly my fault. As soon as he got into my lineup, like, he just stopped scoring touchdowns here. The problem is they just make so many big plays with their receivers, and Kyron is like not a big play dude. And they score from all over the place. They're passing the ball a lot in the red zone, and it's just not getting the ball into Kyron's hands in valuable spots. We did see Blake Corum kind of see a bump up in play time. He had a season high 20% of snaps. You could see it here on Fantasy Life. Kyron Williams down to 80%, Blake up to 20%, but even that, like, that's probably where Sean McVay wants to sit at, because Kyron's been at 94, 99, whatever. This is probably like 80-20 is about right, but that, still like 5 carries, it's not going to be anything you can do anything with. So he's just a high-end handcuff at this point. Puka Nacua looks unbelievable. That's another name that I forgot to mention when I was fucking going off on, all the guys that got injured, even though you drafted really fucking well. It's one thing to draft like Michael Pittmans and all these other guys where you're like, oh, they should be good, but then they're terrible. You just drafted poorly. But if you drafted guys like Puka, if you drafted guys like Kupp, if you drafted those guys and they got hurt, you just got fucked. And that's what a lot of this year was. But Puka coming back now, if you're still in contention and you have Puka in your lineup, like, holy shit, that dude looks incredible. And if you have a decision to make of Puka over Cooper Kupp, I would, and I've been this way since they both returned, would take Puka over Cooper Kupp 9 times out of 10 for the remainder of the season. They're both obviously must starts every single week, but on the flip side, Drake May continues to look really, really good. One of, I think, the most fun conversations that's going to be had this offseason going into next year is like, where do we rank these fantasy quarterbacks, the rookie class, going into next year, especially in like super flex leagues? Like, are we going to have enough room to rank Jaden, Drake May, Bo Nix? Obviously, like, Caleb's not in there right now, but maybe as a big run down the stretch. Like, these are all dudes with a lot of passing yards, a lot of rushing ability, like the perfect fantasy quarterbacks. Where do they go in the rankings? Can they all be top 12? I don't know, but it's a really exciting class that gave a lot of juice to the fantasy quarterback position. This was a great matchup to just nail the over on. Basically, anytime the Patriots are playing with Drake May in the lineup and they're playing against a team that can score points, you need to nail the over. And we did that on Pickett yesterday. We fucking nailed this parlay. If any of y'all were following me on Twitter, I posted that parlay, but you can follow me on Pickett at any time. That shows all of my bets. We put one single bet in yesterday. It was this parlay of, I can't put myself in the right spot anywhere. We had the Indy New York Jets over 43.5. We had the Rams New England over at 43.5. And then we had the under of Baltimore Pittsburgh at 48.5. And a little 600% ROI. How you doing? All right. You can always track me on the Pickett app. So if you download the Pickett app, it is completely free to join. The link will be down below in the description. It will take you there. It'll ask you, who sent you. You type in BDGE, again, free, no credit card, nothing like that. It'll automatically take you to my profile. It's like a social media app for bet tracking. So if you use multiple apps, multiple websites, multiple sports books, whatever, Underdog, DraftKings, whatever, this will let you sync all of them, again, free, and let you track throughout time, throughout, your calendar, weeks, months, whatever, as well as follow some of your favorite bettors or creators or whatever, myself included here. So we nailed this parlay. The desktop is available for pro users. That is a monthly membership that has a lot of fucking cool perks where you could actually like track bets, but you can also see different lines on different sites. So you could see like what is, if I want to take the Drake May rushing yardage total, what is it on DraftKings versus what is it on FanDuel versus what is it on Underdog versus what is it on Prize Picks versus what is it on, all these different sites. You can get the best lines across the entire industry. So that is one of the cool perks of going on to Pickett onto the desktop version and paying for the premium membership. Again, the app itself, absolutely free to join, absolutely free to download, free to follow my betting and follow me there if you want to. But if you want to get on there and use the desktop version, which is obviously a lot easier if you're someone that uses your laptop like I do, and you get a bunch of also like incredible perks on here that you don't get on the mobile app itself, go to pickett.com and get on there, and anywhere you could throw a code in, BDGE, you'll get discounted, you'll get all the good shit, all right? So pickett.com, Rams over, Patriots over every single time. How you doing? Let's get back to the Patriots, though. Ramondre, 20 carries, 73 yards, decent game, doesn't really get it done because he doesn't get into the end zone. Kendrick Bourne was now back. Hunter Henry has a good game. This is just, you kind of know what you're getting out of the pass catchers here. They're just like up and down with very little ceiling involved. There are very rarely any receivers that go over 100 yards and like plus catch a touchdown. But you'll always get a couple guys that go 5 for 60, 5 for 70 because Drake May has, where they did not have this range of outcomes for a while where their quarterback can throw for 300 yards on a given day and keep the offense alive and keep drives going. So it obviously elevates everybody here. But when we look at the snap counts, it's tough because they're going back and forth like on a weekly basis here with who are we playing more so on the outside. Douglas continues to be pretty much just like a slot player, 63% of the snaps. Butte is running all the routes, and I know like people are continuing to recycle the same, narrative of Kayshon Boutte and saying like, oh, he's got 6 targets now in 4 straight games. In those 4 games, the dude has yet to hit 10 PPR points. He hasn't even put up a double-digit PPR game for you. So it's like, sure, he's out there exercising. He's out there getting some targets, but it's been pretty fucking useless. So I got very little faith in it. Kendrick Bourne, back to 50% of the routes. Jalen Polk is sitting at a third of the routes. Can't get a goddamn target. So they're kind of all over the place right now, and it's really hard to trust anyone outside of, I think, Hunter Henry as a solid tight end week in and week out. Saints-Browns, I mean, the Saints beat the shit out of the Browns, and more specifically, Taysom Hill beat the shit out of the Browns. The dude goes 7 for 138, 3 touchdowns on the ground, catches 8 balls for 50 yards. In a PPR league, the dude put up one of the single greatest tight end fantasy performances of all time. So if you had him on your team and you lost this week, you are a certifiably legal cone. I don't want to know what the rest of your team looked like. Derek Carr, 252 touchdowns. MVS, another 71-yard touchdown. The efficiency is inexplainable right now. This one was actually not a deep pass. It was just more like a slant or a short pass that he actually ran to the cribbo. Here's the thing. Like, MVS is capable. We all know MVS. He's capable of this 70-yard touchdown on any given play. At the same time, he's capable of giving your lineup an absolute 0 on any given week. So no new insight that I can give to you. The Saints do have their bye next week. It's possible that their offense gets a little bit healthier coming off the bye and they need to utilize Taysom Hill a little bit less. But at this point, like if you picked him up 2 weeks ago, you just continue to roll him out, not as a tight end, then just as a fucking flex, man. It's insane. On the flip side, Jameis Winston is throwing the ball 45 times a game, pretty much every single game. It led to 400 more yards and 2 touchdowns. Jerry Jeudy got home in this one. It is a carousel. Like, everybody's getting targets out here. Everybody, the same dudes, Tillman, Elijah Moore, David Njoku, Jerry Jeudy, they're all seeing 8 to 12 targets every single game. It's actually fucking insane. The target share is very, very, very condensed. As to who gets home, who catches the big plays, who scores a touchdown, really tough to, actually nail it down. I still would rank it Tillman, Njoku, Jeudy, Elijah Moore. But again, I think they're all pretty much playable because Jameis Winston, like the lack of efficiency in their run game has just forced them to throw the ball a ton, especially when you're getting down big points. You just have so many garbage time drives. And that keeps happening over and over and over again. Chubb, like everybody loved Nick Chubb this week. I was far more skeptical because, again, he just can't break off big plays. Jerome Ford is now back, taking 35% of the carries. He is playing all of the passing down snaps right now. So Nick Chubb continues to give you quite literally like 5 PPR points per game. Colts and the Jets. Let's fucking go, A-Rich. Let's fucking go, all right? I've been backing A-Rich to a fault this year. Not because, like, I didn't draft him in most of my drafts this year. I did trade for him in my big league, but that wasn't why I continued to back him. I would just watch the film, and, like, so much of the shit that happened in these Colts games was not his fault. It was just so many badly timed mistakes and or drops and all that kind of shit. He didn't play great up to this point, obviously, but he wasn't any worse than Flacco, and he had by far and away his best game of the season, maybe of his fucking career. 20 for 30, 272 through the air, a touchdown, obviously 2 more touchdowns on the ground. Huge fantasy day for Anthony Richardson. On the flip side, Jonathan Taylor, 24 for 57. I think you could probably see what happened here just by the box score. The Jets, they're obviously putrid, but they sold the fuck out to stop Jonathan Taylor, and they said, JT, you're going to beat us with your arm. And he said, okay, sirs, I'm going to fucking do that. And he did that. So Josh Downs, huge game. Josh Downs just continues to look so damn good. Like that layout diving catch, that 31-yard catch to extend one of their drives was one of the better catches of the entire season. Alec Pierce, you know what you're getting from him, and the fact that you have no idea what you're getting, but you know the 2 possible outcomes of Alec Pierce. Michael Pittman was back in a full-time role, and it came at the expense and only at the expense of Adonai Mitchell. Downs, Pierce, and Pittman were full-time players. Adonai Mitchell went from running 95% of the routes last week down to 16% this week. So, with that being said, we're never going to know what we get on a weekly basis from A-Rich in this passing game. We don't know what we're getting with Josh Downs and A-Rich, but like we have now 2 good games with Josh Downs and A-Rich playing together and 1 bad game. So if we're going to lean that way, if we're going to lean with the numbers, we lean Josh Downs good regardless of QB. The Jets, yeah, I don't know what to say about the Jets, man. They just fucking stink. Good game for Breece Hall, though. Steelers-Ravens, this was disgusting. I've never really seen an offense quite like Pittsburgh that they would just love not to score. They love trying not to score, I think. It's like, okay, so you know how in like if you guys play in dynasty leagues, a lot of people prefer winning trades more than they like winning leagues. Like they love to make a trade that doesn't help them win a league, but they like being able to like post it on Twitter or like telling people that they won this trade. The Steelers, I think, would like to just like run clock, like win the time of possession more than they would win games. And they're winning games, but it feels like it's in spite of literally not trying to score the ball. They just want to give the ball to Najee Harris as many times as humanly possible. And it's working. It's just really fucking annoying. Pickens gets home, though, 8 for 89. Dude just does some weird shit on a week-by-week basis. He had like a catch where he lunged out of bounds. I think his brain just like turned off for a second. He was like, I have to get out of bounds. But like he needed to get 2 feet inbounds first. And the second foot, he like lunged it doesn't matter. Go watch the replay. It was fucking ridiculous. Backfield, 18 carries, 63 yards for Najee Harris. He does get it done through the air, though, 4 for 30. So had a decent PPR day. Jaylen Warren, though, 9 carries, 41 yards, 4 catches, 27 yards. So he is becoming very, 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 very involved, but it doesn't really seem like it's at the expense of Najee Harris. On the flip side, we had really our first down game from the Baltimore offense, so not much to look into here, in my opinion. We had some very uncharacteristic drops from like Zay Flowers, etc. The one semi-takeaway here is like Mark Andrews, who has been really hot with likely coming back onto the field. He did see a pretty significant dip in like routes run, as kind of has been the case every time Isaiah Likely is on the field. As you can see here, Mark Andrews dropped all the way down to 58%. Like last week in week 10, Likely didn't play, so we saw Andrews' routes up to 94%, but typically you're seeing like more often than not 60, like 48, 47, 60, 57, 74, 50. 94 seems to be the outlier here. 58%, Likely up to 53%. So like, yeah, it's a little bit scary for Andrews' outlook when Likely is on the field with him. Broncos Falcons. All right, let's just get to the bottom of it. All your guesses to me. Yeah, we fucked up. I'm sorry. I apologize to anybody that started and or blew a lot of fab and or lost the game and or did a lot of shit in the name of Audric Estime, in the name of me. I fucked up. And the learning lesson here is just literally not ever once again in your entire lifetime trust a word that comes out of Sean Payton's mouth as it relates to the backfield. Audric Estime, 6 for 16 on the ground. Does catch 3 passes, but Javonte Williams was the guy, began the guy, finished as the guy, and that was about the story of this game. Bo Nix, this was I'm going to be honest with you, 38-6. The score, I didn't think it'd be that bad, but the Broncos beat the fuck out of my Falcons. This to me was a very easy bet on the Broncos. I didn't bet it because I don't bet against my Falcons. Obviously, if you're a fan, betting against your team's insane. But the Broncos -2, I'll tell you why, because I track injury reports very closely throughout the week. The Falcons were without 3 of their top 4 starting cornerbacks, as well as their leading tackler on defense. You're without 3 of your top 4 cornerbacks. You're signing dudes off the practice squad, off the street. In game, they also lost another starting cornerback. So they had nobody going in their secondary. We're just getting picked apart by Bo Nix. On top of that, we obviously have 0 pass rush. We haven't had a pass rush in a fucking decade. We are abysmal on the D-line. But I'm glad we drafted a quarterback 8 overall instead of trying to get pass rush help, though. Shout out to us. Bijan, bad game. Everybody kind of in a bad game. This Denver defense is just so fucking good, man. Not much else to say, but this is what happens in the NFL. Like when you have those types of things working against you, right? Like Denver's defense is great. We couldn't get anything going on offense, but when you're down everybody on defense, like things just start to spiral and like snowball out of control pretty much. Like once a couple things start going wrong, it's very hard to maintain any sort of grip on what's going on because your game plan has to change and then you become one-dimensional. So, like, I'm going to be honest, I'm not, like, overly surprised that the game turned out the way that it did here. Seahawks versus the Niners. Played a pretty sloppy game, but did end up leading them for that touchdown drive. Kenneth Walker gets in for a touchdown score. He's not really as involved in the passing game as he was in the beginning of the year, unfortunately, and it's kind of capped his ceiling. We did have DK Metcalf back for his first game, 7 for 70 on 9 targets, but JSN, man, 11 targets, 10 catches, 110 yards. It seemed to be a really good matchup the way that San Fran plays defense to pepper the slot. I will say, though, like JSN did have probably about 35 to 40% of his production like on that last drive alone. So I don't want to like dig too deep, but it does feel like we are in the midst of the JSN breakout. I was skeptical with DK Metcalf coming back. I still think I'll probably lean on the side of pessimism a little bit as it relates to all the sit-start questions I will probably get with JSN, but it does seem like he's kind of overtaken the Tyler Lockett role as the clear wide receiver too, and more importantly, like he actually looks good when you're watching him. It felt like we saw no explosion or any sort of like real precision or any sort of real like, smoothness to his game for a very long time, but it feels like the opposite over the last month of the season. He's really like finding his own and breaking out. On the flip side, you want to talk about finding his fucking own and breaking out, it is Jawan Jennings, man. He is everything we wanted from Brandon Ayuk in fantasy this year, plus 17 fantasy points a game, 10 for 91 and a touchdown, 11 targets in this one. Continues to just post insane fantasy numbers for you. You roll him out every single week as a top 15, if not a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. C-Mac continues to get a lot of work, but cannot get home. He's clearly still like getting his legs under him. He does not have the explosion that we've become to expect out of him. I don't know if that's something we're going to get out of him this year, maybe not over the next couple weeks or so. He's not really making big plays. He's unbelievably involved, obviously. 19 carries, 4 receptions. Like, he'll continue to get a shitload of work, catch a bunch of passes, go for 100 yards. But we're not seeing those like 25, 30-point games. We need to see him start getting into the end zone. George Kittle kind of randomly didn't play, but didn't lead to shit for Ricky P. Didn't lead to shit for Deebo Samuel, unfortunately. Probably better days ahead, but there's clearly something a little bit off with this 49ers offense here. But obviously you start C-Mac every week, you start Jennings every week, you start Kittle when he is back. And Deebo, I think you continue to roll him out, even though there seems to be something a little bit off there. We have the Bills and the Chiefs. This is the last game of the slate that I believe we have not talked about yet. The Bills pull it off 30-21. Mahomes 196 and 3 touchdowns through the air. Kareem Hunt finally does not have a good fantasy day, 14 for 60. I think one of the biggest storylines if we're going to next week will be Isaiah Pacheco. Supposedly, he will be maybe returning next week. Okay, let's look at the schedule real quick. The Chiefs play, I believe, the Panthers in week 12. Let me see. Where the fuck is they? Yep, they play the Panthers. It's a 1 o'clock game on Sunday. Now, I know a lot of people like to give analysis like, oh, they play the Panthers. They know they don't need to win the game. Let's rest this guy. NFL teams don't operate and or think that way. I've listened to so many podcasts from people that have been inside NFL buildings, whether it is medical teams, coaches, former GMs that now are in the media. They don't think that way. So that type of analysis is literally a waste of breath analysis if they think that the next game is more important in the sense that, okay, they're playing a divisional opponent next game as opposed to a non-divisional opponent this game. That might be something that swings them. But they don't look at the opponent. Every team is an NFL team. Every team is a very, very good team filled with players that can make plays and win games on any given basis. When you're a team like the Chiefs, you're 9-1, sure. You're dominating. But the AFC is very good right now. They have multiple teams that are right behind. The Bills are now a game behind them and have the tiebreaker head-to-head over them. You have the Steelers who are 8-2. You have teams that are right on their heels. They're not taking any games for granted, especially not at this point in the season. So, that's not saying Pacheco will play. I have no idea if he's going to play, but I'm saying they're not going to rest him because the opponent is the Panthers as opposed to the Commanders or the Buccaneers or anything like that, all right? So, just something to keep in mind. If Pacheco returns, we're not going to see a week 1 Pacheco. We're not going to see 15 touches for Pacheco. We're not going to see Pacheco have the explosiveness that he did, at least not right away. So he's not going to be in my lineup if he is playing this week. I think I could probably still get Kareem Hunt in there because the matchup is so juicy, and I don't think they lean on Pacheco. But obviously, it's a huge hit to the backfield to Kareem Hunt, who has been an absolute league saver for a lot of people that picked him up. We saw a nice little involvement tick up for Xavier Worthy, who tied for the team lead. Only 5 targets, but there was a tweet that said, pregame reports, oh, they're going to get Xavier Worthy involved more in this game, and they did. They had a really, really strong concerted effort in the first half. I don't think he touched the ball again in the second half, though. And they also, I feel like that report has come out 7 times already this year, where it's we're going to get Worthy more involved. Then he has 2 targets, so I guess good to see, but still makes it a really, really difficult start, in my opinion. On the flip side, Josh Allen gets it done. 262 and a touchdown, plus an interception through the air, but 55 and a touchdown on the ground. James Cook saves his day, 2 touchdowns, only 9 for 20 on the ground. Does have 5 catches, 7 yards. So PPR, he had a weirdly put together box score, but a really big PPR day for you. I think this might have been one of those games where it's I'm not looking at James Cook and being oh my God, Ty Johnson or Ray Davis are on his heels. I think it was probably more of the Kansas City Chiefs D-line is overpowering. They are huge fucking monsters up front. Let's try to combat that with a little bit of our powerful running in Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, who are a lot bigger than James Cook. So I'm not looking too much into that. We had Shakir, 8 for 70, 12 targets. We had Curtis Samuel, 5 for 58 and a touchdown. Mark Cooper had 2 really, really, really nice catches. Only goes 2 for 55, though, in his first game back. Dawson Knox, 4 for 40. Disappointing unless you're in a tight end premium. This was without Keon Coleman. This was without Dalton Kincaid. They have their bye next week, so maybe we see those guys back after the bye, but obviously we're going to have to check on practice reports. It gets really messy if everybody in this offensive group is at full strength. The only player that I have super, super high confidence in starting week in and week out outside of Josh Allen is James Cook at this point. But the other ones will probably be a lot of sit-start questions going into week 12, I would imagine. All right? So that is the week 11 full recap for y'all. If you enjoyed, please hit the button that looks like this. We have 800 people in here, but only 67 thumbs up, which is crazy. And again, I will plug one more time. We have the Pickett app. Go download it for free. You can track my bets. You can see what I take on Underdog Fantasy tonight, all right? Because you guys, if you are a new customer, oopsies, what are we doing here? If you guys are a new customer on Underdog Fantasy, they are giving you this absolutely free square of CJ Stroud 1 passing yard tonight. So you can go take that when you sign up with code BDGE. That is the way that they're going to give you that free square. And then if you follow me on Pickett, you'll be able to see what I pair with this free square. Shout out to me for the fucking bars. And then if you want to sign up for the Fantasy Life website, again, this is a year-long membership, $100. But if you sign in and check out with code BDGE, you will get it for 20% off, which is such a good fucking deal for the single best resource in fantasy football right now. All right. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. Tomorrow will be the waiver wire video, so come correct, come tucked. Come join me for that. Probably out around noon Eastern time. Subscribe to the channel if you are in need of some waiver wire pickups. I love y'all. I'm out. Smoochies.